I never thought my life would implode from the inside out, the way a single thread pulled just right could unravel years of stability, of pride, of happiness that I'd built so carefully. My name's Alex. I'm 32, married to Hannah, who's probably the most grounded, intelligent, and ambitious person I've ever met. She has this balance in her life that makes everyone else feel like they're constantly scrambling to catch up. Successful career, great friends, a loving family, a couple of kids that are straight-up miracles in her eyes, and somehow, she managed to keep us all laughing in the chaos. I thought I had it all figured out, a family, a career that was steady, a marriage that had its ups and downs but was rock solid. Until I didn't. Her younger sister, Maya, had always been a little off. Not overtly hostile, not obvious. But there was this simmering resentment beneath her surface that I could feel but didn't really understand until it was too late. Hannah was the golden child in every sense, the smart one, the beautiful one, the one who got the job offers, the promotions, the husband, the kids, the life. Maya, she was ambitious in a way that felt more like competition than curiosity, a constant need to measure herself against her sister and come up short. I noticed it in small ways at first. Offhand comments, the way she'd laugh at my jokes a second too long, a lingering glance that made my stomach knot in ways that should have been impossible. I brushed it off. I told myself she was just flirty, harmless, like a sister-in-law testing boundaries the way some people do. After all, Hannah and Maya were close, or so I thought. We'd have family dinners, holidays, birthdays, all those moments that felt normal, and Maya would always find a way to be the center of attention, to subtly steer the conversation, to make me feel like she understood me in ways my wife sometimes didn't. Then came the first real warning. Hannah had a work trip, a long week in Chicago. I stayed home with the kids. Maya came over to help. I was tired, stressed, juggling work and the kids and trying to make dinner without burning the kitchen down. And she was there, helpful, laughing, touching my shoulder when I moved in the kitchen, leaning close when she laughed at a dumb joke I made, and I don't know, I let it feel nice. I knew it was wrong to feel that warmth, that attention, that validation. I shook it off. I was married. I had a wife, a life, a code of honor that I thought was unbreakable. But over the months, it got worse. Maya's visits became more frequent. Every helping hand, every accidental brush of her fingers against mine, every late-night text asking if I wanted to talk. While Hannah worked late, it built up, subtle, dangerous, like smoke seeping under the door. I ignored the feeling, thinking it was a test, thinking I could keep my mind clean. But the more she pushed, the more I realized just how vulnerable I had become without even noticing it. She wasn't just a sister-in-law, she was a predator cloaked in charm. And I was blind to it because I never imagined that someone I trusted so fully could want to destroy me from the inside. The first time I really saw it, the clarity, was during a Sunday afternoon visit. Hannah was at a conference, and Maya needed to come over to help with the kids while I worked from home. Everything seemed normal in a way that made my heart ache because it was too familiar, too safe. Then she leaned over to correct a homework problem for my son, and her hand brushed mine. It lingered. And the look she gave me was deliberate, slow, intentional, like she wanted me to notice it, to feel it, to respond. I froze. My pulse hit a rhythm I hadn't felt in years, a dangerous mix of fear, guilt, and desire that I wanted to deny but couldn't. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just felt it. That moment, that tiny, impossible moment, marked the beginning of a slow unraveling that I didn't understand at the time. I didn't know then that she had been planning this for years, quietly planting seeds, watching, learning, waiting for cracks in my life, waiting for the moment when I would feel alone, when I would be tempted. I came home from work later that evening to find my phone buzzing with a message from Maya. Nothing overtly sexual, nothing incriminating on the surface, just a carefully crafted text about how Hannah doesn't appreciate everything you do for the family, does she? You're the glue that keeps this all together, and no one ever notices. I froze, staring at the screen. The seed was planted. I knew, deep down, that she wanted more, and the thought of it made me simultaneously furious and sick to my stomach. And at that moment I realized my life was no longer just about work, kids, and Hannah. It had become a minefield of desire, betrayal, and manipulation, one I hadn't even known existed. My sister-in-law was playing a game, and I was right in the center, blind, naive, and completely trapped by her patience, cunning, and the quiet envy that had been simmering for years. I should have stopped it. I should have said no, blocked her, told Hannah immediately. But I didn't. Not yet. And that's when everything started to spiral. It didn't happen all at once, like a movie scene with dramatic music and a single, shocking reveal. It happened slowly, imperceptibly at first, until one day I realized that the line had already been crossed, and there was no going back. Maya was clever, careful, deliberate, and patient, like a predator studying its prey. Every interaction, every casual touch, every word she sent or whispered seemed innocent on the surface, but underneath it, there was a current, a pull, a trap I could feel but didn't want to acknowledge. It was a Thursday evening. Hannah was stuck late at the office again, and I had just put the kids to bed, thinking I could finally breathe for 15 minutes. Maya had popped by to pick up a book she'd left on our coffee table weeks ago. She arrived wearing one of those casual outfits that somehow managed to look effortlessly put together, hair falling over her shoulders, eyes sharp and calculating. She smiled at me, that smile that I hated and loved at the same time, and for a split second, I allowed myself to enjoy her attention. We talked about nothing in particular at first, the kids, the house, her work, but the way she laughed at my stories, leaned closer while I told them, and touched my arm lightly when she emphasized a point made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't control. My brain screamed at me to stop, to remember I was married, to remember Hannah, to remember that she was my wife in every possible way. But the voice in my head, the one that I told myself was curiosity or fatigue or loneliness, kept whispering, just a harmless connection. You're fine. Then it happened. That one small, deliberate gesture that would have destroyed any illusion of innocence if anyone else had seen it. She brushed her hand along mine while reaching for the book, but the brush lingered, intentional, electric. She held my gaze just long enough for me to feel her intention, before quickly averting her eyes as if nothing had happened. My stomach twisted. I knew exactly what she was doing. I knew she had been doing it for years, in small doses, little tests, little nudges at my boundaries, watching me, waiting for cracks in my armor. I should have walked away. I should have told her firmly, "This ends now." But instead I froze. My body betrayed me, my mind raced with guilt, shame, and something I can barely admit even now, a dangerous mix of curiosity and desire that made me feel like I was sliding toward a cliff I couldn't see. The next week, things escalated. Maya started sending texts under the guise of casual family conversation, but the subtext was always there: admiration, subtle compliments, hints that she understood me in ways Hannah didn't. I could feel her envy simmering beneath her carefully measured words. She didn't just want attention, she wanted me, my loyalty, my desire, and she was willing to wait, manipulate, and push until she got it. One night, I stayed late at the office. I was exhausted, stressed, and missing my family. Maya texted, "It's so unfair that Hannah has everything. Don't you ever feel like you're just missing out on something real?" I stared at the message for minutes. The truth of it hit me like a punch. She wasn't subtle anymore. She was baiting me, testing me, dangling the forbidden in front of me like I could just walk past it and remain innocent. I wanted to delete the message, to call Hannah, to confess that I was being mentally assaulted by her manipulation, but I didn't. I didn't know why. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was shame, maybe it was the addictive pull of knowing that someone wanted me so badly it hurt. Whatever it was, I felt myself being drawn into her orbit, unable to resist the gravitational pull of envy, desire, and a twisted kind of intimacy I couldn't admit to anyone else. By the end of that week, I realized I had already crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My mind was no longer clear, my moral compass spinning in circles, and I had no one to blame but myself. I had let a sister-in-law, someone who should have been family, become a dangerous presence in my life, and I didn't know how far she would go, or how far I would let her push me before everything I loved came crashing down. The thing is, I didn't even fully understand the stakes yet. I didn't know how long this had been going on in her mind, how much she had planned, or just how far she was willing to go to take what she thought should have been hers. But I felt it, like a slow-burning fuse, and deep down, I knew the explosion was inevitable. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, there were signs, small and almost imperceptible, that screamed louder than my own denial. But I was blinded by a combination of fatigue, trust, and something darker, a curiosity I didn't want to name. Maya wasn't just flirtatious anymore, she was methodical, intentional, and frighteningly patient. Every action she took, every word she sent, every smile that lingered too long, felt like a chess move designed to corner me, and the scary truth was that I let her. It was a Friday evening. Hannah had a dinner meeting with her colleagues and wouldn't be home until late. I had promised the kids a movie night, but as soon as they were settled on the couch, Maya called, just a casual voice note, supposedly asking about a recipe I had tried last week. Her tone was warm, familiar, and impossibly intimate, like she was letting me into a secret that only she and I shared. The kids were laughing in the background, Hannah was miles away, and I was suddenly aware of how isolated I felt. She must have known. By the time she arrived, I was in the kitchen cleaning up the mess from the popcorn disaster. She came in, smiling, hair falling over her shoulders, casual but deliberate, like she owned the space she stepped into. I froze. She leaned in, to help me clean, but I could feel her body press subtly against mine, feel her warmth, feel the quiet power she wielded by simply existing. Every nerve ending in me screamed, warning me to stop, to push her away, to run, but I didn't. I couldn't. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You know," she whispered, almost conspiratorial, "sometimes I wonder what it would be like, if I had your life instead. Not just the house or the kids, but you, everything you have with her." I wanted to laugh it off. I wanted to tell her it was inappropriate, that she was crossing a line I didn't think she could, that she needed to leave. But her words hit me in a way I didn't expect. Somewhere deep inside, I understood the envy, the desire, the longing she had harbored for years, watching Hannah thrive in ways she felt she couldn't. And for a terrifying moment, I felt a part of me, call it vanity, call it weakness, want to see what that could even mean. She didn't wait for an answer. She leaned closer, just enough that I could smell her perfume, and whispered, "I've wanted this for so long, Alex. You don't even know." Something snapped. Not in me, not fully, but enough to feel the gravity of what was happening. This wasn't harmless flirtation anymore. This wasn't playful teasing. This was a carefully orchestrated game, one she had been running for years, and the prize was me. She wanted to unravel my life, to steal my marriage, my family, my identity as a husband and father. And worse, I realized, I had been playing along in small, dangerous ways. Over the next weeks, it escalated. Every visit became longer, every text sharper, more intimate, more daring. She started leaving little notes in my car, in my briefcase, in the kitchen drawers, small declarations that made my pulse spike and my stomach churn. Every time I saw her, every time I heard her voice, it was like walking a tightrope over a canyon of guilt, desire, and fear. I started noticing subtle changes in myself. I was tense around Hannah, anxious and distracted. I found myself lying about small things, where I had been, who I had texted, why I had stayed late at work, because the truth seemed like a weapon that could destroy everything. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. The more I resisted, the more intoxicating the danger became. And then came the night that changed everything. Hannah had left for a weekend work retreat, and I was alone with the kids. Maya called to check in, claiming concern for the children, but by the time she arrived, the tone had shifted completely. She cornered me in the living room, her voice low, urgent, intoxicating. She told me I deserved happiness, that she understood me in ways Hannah never could, that she had been watching, waiting, loving me from the shadows for years. In that moment, I saw the full extent of her obsession. It wasn't envy disguised as flirtation anymore. It was a plan, a quiet, dangerous manipulation meant to push me toward betraying everything I loved. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my stomach twisting with shame and fear. And I knew, without question, that if I didn't act, if I didn't stop her somehow, my life, my family, everything I had worked for, could be destroyed in a single impulsive moment. That was the first night I truly understood the stakes. Maya wasn't just my sister-in-law. She was a threat. A long-term, methodical, patient threat who had studied my weaknesses, my loneliness, my vanity, my sense of pride, and now she was testing me, cornering me, and daring me to break. I survived that night without crossing the line in a physical sense, but I knew the real danger wasn't a single moment of weakness. It was the slow, grinding erosion of my boundaries, my morality, my loyalty, that would happen if this went unchecked. I realized, painfully, that I had to confront it. But how do you confront someone who has been patiently planning to ruin your life for years, while making you complicit in your own undoing? I should have ended it the moment I realized what was happening. I should have called Hannah, blocked Maya, burned the bridge, whatever it took. But instead I waited, paralyzed by guilt, fear, and something darker that I didn't want to admit to myself. That hesitation was my biggest mistake. It all came to a head on a Thursday night. Hannah was traveling for work again, late flight, late return. I was home with the kids, exhausted, trying to make it through homework, dinner, bedtime without losing my mind. Maya called, as usual, with some excuse to check on the kids and help out. I hesitated, then let her come over. Maybe it was fatigue, maybe denial, maybe the fact that I secretly wanted to see if I could resist her. When she walked in, everything felt different. The air was heavier, thick with intent. She smiled at me, casually, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Those eyes were sharp, hungry, assessing, like she was weighing exactly how far she could push me tonight. My stomach churned. I wanted to tell her to leave. I wanted to shout, to slam the door, to finally end the tension that had been poisoning every corner of my life for months. But I didn't. We were in the kitchen, the kids occupied in the living room, and she started with small talk, seemingly harmless, yet every word, every gesture, carried a subtle undercurrent that made my pulse spike. Then, out of nowhere, she brushed her hand against mine again. This time, I couldn't ignore it. I felt my body respond before my brain could protest. She leaned closer, whispering in a voice so low it was nearly intimate. "You're tired. You deserve someone who understands. Someone who wants you like I do." That line, that moment, that voice. It should have been enough for me to stop, to see the danger for what it was. But my brain was fogged with exhaustion, guilt, and a creeping curiosity that I couldn't name, couldn't fight. For a heartbeat, I considered it. I considered how wrong it was, how destructive, how easily it could ruin my marriage, my family, my life. And I almost gave in. But then it happened, the sound of the front door unlocking. Hannah. Home earlier than expected. I froze. Maya pulled back instantly, smiling a smile that tried to convince me nothing had happened. My heart was pounding in my chest, my palms sweaty. I wanted to tell Hannah everything, right there, but the words stuck in my throat. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear from my own life. Hannah stepped into the kitchen, dropping her bag on the counter, smiling at us both. "Hey! How's my little team doing?" she said, and in that moment, the reality of my betrayal, of what could have happened, what almost happened, hit me like a freight train. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I could only nod, muttering some awkward response, while Maya kept her composure like nothing had occurred. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I confronted Maya in private. The words tumbled out, trembling with rage and shame. "This has to stop. Now. You can't do this. You can't try to manipulate me like this, and you definitely can't touch me like that. Ever." Again. Her reaction was terrifying. Calm, measured, like she had anticipated this confrontation. She didn't apologize. She didn't deny anything. Instead, she smiled, a slow, calculated smile, and said, "Do you really think this started tonight, Alex? You've wanted me too. You've let me in, even if you didn't realize it. I've been patient. I've been careful. And now you're scared? That's cute." I wanted to punch her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the walls down and drag her out of my life by force. But I realized something worse. She wasn't bluffing. She had been planning, waiting, studying my reactions, my weaknesses, and she knew me better than I knew myself. And that's when I understood the real danger. This wasn't just temptation. This wasn't just desire. This was calculated, long-term, and if I didn't act, if I didn't confront both her and my own moral failure, it would destroy everything I loved. I finally told her, as firmly as I could, "I don't want this. I don't want you. I love my wife, I love my family, and if you don't leave my life completely, I will make sure there's no coming back for either of us. Do you understand me?" She laughed softly, almost mockingly, and said, "We'll see, Alex. We'll see." And then she left. But the damage was done. The cracks had appeared, and I couldn't erase them. The guilt, the awareness of how close I came to betrayal, the knowledge that I had allowed a sister-in-law to manipulate me for months, it stayed with me. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for several nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, her hand brushing mine, the calculated hunger in her eyes. By the next morning, I knew something had to change. I couldn't leave this unresolved, not for my marriage, not for my family, not for myself. And yet, I didn't know if confronting her legally, socially, or even morally would be enough to undo the slow, insidious manipulation that had already taken root in my life. I was scared, and I hated myself for being scared. After that night, I realized there was no walking back to the way things were before Maya had inserted herself into my life. The psychological damage had been done, the tension seated so deeply that every interaction, every thought, every small moment was colored by the knowledge of what could have happened, and almost did. I couldn't undo months of manipulation, months of carefully cultivated attention, months of subtle psychological warfare that I had ignored until it was almost too late. I took steps immediately, drastic ones, because I knew that hesitation would be fatal. I blocked Maya on every platform, I cut off all unnecessary contact, and I told Hannah, finally, everything, the texts, the visits, the subtle touches, the things I had almost let happen. I braced myself for the explosion, for disbelief, anger, heartbreak, for the idea that my wife might look at me and see betrayal even where no physical line had been crossed. Hannah's reaction was a mixture of rage, hurt, and incredulity. She stared at me like I had handed her a live grenade, words failing, tears flowing, and I felt a mixture of shame and relief. Relief because I had told her the truth, shame because the truth was ugly and messy and entirely my responsibility. The confrontation with Maya had shaken me to my core, but confessing it to Hannah was something else entirely. It felt like exposing the rot inside my soul to the only person who had trusted me completely, and waiting for her judgment. Her anger was intense, justifiably so, but there was also a strange clarity in it. She demanded accountability, set boundaries, and gave me the chance to prove that I was loyal, that I could choose her over the chaos Maya had created. It wasn't instant forgiveness. It wasn't some romanticized moment where we held hands and everything was okay. It was a real, messy process of rebuilding trust, and I knew that if I failed, I'd lose everything I loved. Maya didn't respond well to being cut off. She sent messages at first, escalating from passive-aggressive to outright threatening, implying that if I didn't respond, she could make life difficult for me socially, professionally, even legally. I didn't reply. I documented everything. I spoke to family, close friends, even a lawyer briefly, because I realized that this wasn't just a moral issue, it was a potential liability. She had been calculating, patient, and dangerous, and I wasn't taking any chances anymore. The weeks that followed were tense. Hannah was wary, watching my interactions, observing, cautious. I was careful, hyper-aware of my own thoughts and feelings, and terrified of making a single mistake that could undo the trust we were trying to rebuild. And slowly, painfully, we began to heal. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments where the memory of Maya's manipulation would surface, where I would feel a cold wave of guilt, fear, or shame. But honesty, transparency, and the willingness to confront the chaos head-on became our lifeline. I've learned some brutal truths through this. First, desire is a dangerous, sneaky thing, and it doesn't wait for convenient moments. It creeps in slowly, hides behind familiarity and attention, and can twist loyalty into confusion before you even realize what's happening. Second, envy is a powerful motivator, not just in strangers but in people closest to you. Maya wasn't reckless or random. She was calculating, patient, and driven by a long-term resentment that grew over years. Third, honesty, even when it terrifies you, is the only thing that can save you from a spiral that becomes irreversible. I tell this story not because I want sympathy or to shame anyone, but because I need to confess the raw truth. I almost lost everything to someone I should have been able to trust as family, and I failed in small ways before I finally took action. I almost let desire, guilt, and subtle manipulation control my actions, and the only reason I survived unscathed, relatively, was because I confronted it, documented it, and faced the ugly reality head-on. And here's the question I still wrestle with, the one that keeps me awake sometimes at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling. If someone you love and trust most is silently undermined by a third party, do you confess immediately, even if it risks destroying trust, or do you try to contain it quietly, hoping to survive the manipulation without revealing the chaos? Because every choice has consequences, and sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to expose the truth, no matter how ugly it is.